Prime your jetpacks because today we're going to the cloud. Right, the data center crisis, the memory crisis, that stuff will not relent. Console prices are going way up, and the fear is there's almost no limit, not even $1,000. But with every crisis comes opportunity, and hardware manufacturers think that streaming is the new thing. You know, there's better tech, better access, and far lower buy-in prices. And whatever your concerns may be about ownership or performance, those are good concerns, the push towards this tech is coming. And as we will soon see, in some places it is literally falling apart with hours-long waits and awful experiences. But before we get to the shitty time that our Aussie friends are having with cloud gaming, Xbox's new CEO, Asha Sharma, enters the picture. She wants to entertain more than 1 billion players a day. You can't do that with just selling consoles, and they never intended to do that. Cloud was actually called out as a focus early in her tenure. And remember who Xbox answers to. Microsoft. And Microsoft closed their fiscal year this week with amazing news. Microsoft Cloud at $59.3 billion for the quarter, up 27% year on year, and Azure growing 43%, all while Xbox content and service revenue is down by 10% and hardware sales are also down. It's all looking grim for Xbox. But what you need to know is that Microsoft are a cloud company that happens to sell consoles. So, it's no surprise that Xbox just rolled out a test for a free cloud streaming tier, where you can watch 2 minutes of adverts and then get to play a game that you already own for an hour. And that's on top of Game Pass streaming for both your own games and the whole subscription library. But Xbox aren't doing anything particularly new here. It is a similar pitch as, of course, Nvidia's with the GeForce Now ad-supported tier, even right down to the ads being 2 minutes. And the target audience seems similar, people with big libraries of games who want better performance away from their home console. Now, Xbox specifically call out the more than 50 million Xbox One owners who are now going to be able to play modern games, quote, without needing to purchase new hardware right away. They're saying that they're expanding that benefit to regions where consoles are, quote, harder to find or less affordable. So what we see is Xbox's ideal business scenario is one where a library of purchases is divorced from owning a console. All your games are up there somewhere, floating about. Which, of course, may sound a little bit familiar to a story we covered earlier this year. There's a specific thrill in racing a real person and winning by just a split second, and that is what today's sponsor Matix turns into a game, where you are doing fast mental duels against real players, where you're solving, reacting, and trying to stay accurate, whilst somebody else on the other end is doing the exact same against you. And it's wild how well it clicks. You get in a roll, you feel unstoppable, but maybe then you make a properly silly mistake under pressure and immediately want another round because obviously that one where you made a silly mistake didn't count. And that core fun loop is the whole game. Now, Matix duels run across maths, memory, puzzle, and logic, so whenever one of them humbles you, there's also 3 more where you can go to restore a little bit of your competitive dignity. But seriously, in our very doom-scrolly world, the likes of Matix there to keep you sharp and actually have some healthy phone use is absolutely killer. And you can actually download Matix for free on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Basically, think about it like it's a bit of a sport. Scan the QR code on the screen, use the link down below, download the app, and good luck. Maybe I will see you out there, and we'll see who wins. Thanks to Matix for sponsoring this video. The future I just laid out can go pretty bad, and Amazon shows us exactly how. You see, they recently culled Luna support for the GOG games that you'd be able to buy through Amazon, and we pointed out at the time that this meant that for some people, their gaming platform just disappeared, because they bought those GOG games to do in the Luna streaming, but then the Luna streaming dropped it, and now they wouldn't have hardware to play the game. Wild. Though since that story, it's become even clearer that Amazon wants to target an entirely different audience than Xbox. Speaking to The Game Business, Amazon's general manager for games, Jeffrey Gattis, explained that our business is more about reaching more players and expanding the market, not trying to get people to give up their consoles or gaming PCs. And you know what? Yeah, he's really not going to do that when the sorts of things they're releasing over at Amazon are the Snoop Dogg AI slop courtroom game, and of course its amazing successor, the Arnold Schwarzenegger slop chatbot game. Who plays these? Are they even humans? What's going on? It's very strange. But But what it does mean for me and others in the UK, or you guys in the US, is that you can now run these Luna games through Prime Video. You don't even need a controller, you can just use the phone app. And the whole pitch is that it's a library that runs from Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to, yes, Courtroom Chaos starring Snoop Dogg. You can play the Snoop Dogg game and you can pour yourself a glass of Cali Red, of course also from the Snooped Dog, because life is slop. Now, the better side of that is, party games, tie-in things, I guess the type of market that Netflix games has went for. And Gaddis frames the audience as the more than 2 billion people who play games but don't have dedicated hardware to play games on. Basically the types of people who never needed a console and were never really interested in getting a console, though of course, doubly so now because of the current prices. And he actually thinks that those rising prices are a big opportunity for Luna, and of course for cloud gaming in general. Here's what he just said. We saw the Steam machine opening at $1,000. We heard rumors about consoles, because of the RAM crisis, pushing up to over $1,000 in Gen 10. So I do think you get to a point at which more people will be in the consideration set for a cloud gaming solution just because of the sheer cost of buying dedicated hardware. Now, as much as I clowned on him because his division are doing the Snoop Slop game, he does have a point there, doesn't he? And based on the raw numbers, he may be kind of right. But the question is what you'd be trading away in that future. You see, underneath all of this, Xbox and Amazon are kind of making the same pitch. It's that you, Mr. and Mrs. Gamer, want to play the newest games, but you don't want to shell out for a modern console. Well, good news. We have a solution, because it's not like those consoles are ever going to get cheaper, especially because we're buying all the RAM, throwing it into our data centers. And so in that world, which they are helping to create, a Game Pass subscription or a Luna subscription gets you access to a library, and hey, with Luna, you don't even need a controller. But the trade-off is so very steep. And we just got a perfect example that fell mere days after these announcements. As if, of course, people who bought GOG games being rug pulled isn't enough. But it's this. Cloud gaming went down for Xbox just as Halo Campaign Evolved Advanced Access launched. Lamau. But it's not just them. PlayStation Network was down for chunks of the last weekend. Very good for their whole disc debacle. And in both cases, streaming games just literally wouldn't be an option. But at least for most people, they could still play video games offline on the dedicated hardware that they own. If cloud gaming was your only way to play, obviously you would be stuck. But as much as they're annoying, outages are not constant. Though, even outside of an outage, well, there are issues. If you live in, say, an area without reliable fiber broadband, well, you know you can barely download a game in a reasonable amount of time, let alone get decent latency on your button presses. And yes, it is the case that the distribution of internet services is far better in the US now than it may have been, 10 years ago, when the OECD found that only 26.4% of the population had fixed fiber in 2024. The US is doing more fiber rollouts, but it is still heavily centralized to metropolitan areas and generally locked behind way more pricey subscription packages. But what's interesting from Gaddis is he acknowledges all of this. He's actually very aware that people have tried cloud gaming in the past and bounced off it. And so, that is actually part of their plan. Here's what he said. So now, it's almost like you have to rebuild trust in people who had a bad cloud experience 5 years ago. Yeah, he's absolutely right, but there's also the trust issue given how, of course, Stadia went down. And in a fundamental way, the gap they're trying to breach here is similar to Prime Video against DVDs and Blu-rays or the devices that play them. You could get better picture quality and no risk of hitching or pixelation if you dug out a disc, went through a bunch of menus and hit the play button. Or you could just search Prime Video and hit play. It's the typical thing of trading quality for convenience, and sadly, as far as film and TV go for most people, well, the ship has sailed and discs are a thing of the past. That makes me sad. Own a Blu-ray collection. Blu-rays are amazing. Bitrates matter. All your shit will look way better. Trust me. And in a way, you can trust some things that Gaddis has said, and that's because of something I haven't told you yet. He was Xbox's general manager of gaming platforms and subscriptions until June 2025, so he is acutely familiar with Xbox's strategy of cloud as a console replacement or a console supplement, and that means he knows why it hasn't worked out. And what's good for us is he explained why to IGN. Quote, I was at Xbox when we were pushing out xCloud. I think part of the problem is cloud gaming was sort of positioned at core gamers as you didn't need a console. There were marketing campaigns around no console required. And in many ways, I think the core gamer who's invested in a console, has invested in a $3,000 graphics card, not only is committed to the hardware, they love the hardware. They love the fidelity. So what we basically get in that is big cloud gaming man acknowledging what's obvious to us, that we don't really need a cloud gaming solution for anything other than traveling, and even framed the whole cloud market so far as being, quote, a solution in search of a problem. He said that with the games business a while ago. But what's now changed is the problem has actually appeared. It's the memory crisis. It's all the data center stuff, that raising dedicated hardware. Gaddis basically argues that now cloud gaming is becoming viable as a distribution method and a place where people can get a higher fidelity experience that could actually compete. And you know what? He may in some instances be right. If you have amazing internet, but you are stuck on ancient hardware that can barely run games, maybe cloud could be a better experience. But as we will soon see, not necessarily, because a bunch of people in Australia have had a pretty awful time of it. If you looked at the NVIDIA GeForce Now subreddit anytime the last few weeks, you would have seen a wave of complaints. You see, the service just launched fully in India, and servers were absolutely slammed. There were long queues to get onto cloud PCs, and on the free tiers, some people reported, get this, up to 3 or 4 hours. Effectively, NVIDIA just doesn't have the capacity in that region to serve everyone from launch. Now, to a degree, they can simply just spin up more machines, but there's a hard limit there based on geography and capacity. And speaking of geography, Australia is pretty far away. They're used to having server problems with games, but in Australia, there's a service that's provided through a regional cloud operator called Pentanet, and their players have reported high queue times for months. And they point to the claim that the entire country is now running through one server location. That's with the closure of the AU West option basically leaving players facing big latency issues. They're having a really shitty time of it. Now, in India, NVIDIA provides the service directly, but in Australia, they do it through a local partner. But in both of those cases, there is a fundamental underlying issue, and that is of scale. There is not enough hardware to meet the demand at a respectable quality. Now, they could scale up as they expand availability, but how do you get access to more cloud hardware? Well, you need more, GPUs and stuff. And where's all the HBM going to now? Not gaming cards. And what that basically means is Gen AI is going to muscle out the likes of, say, cloud gaming. And that means that Gaddis may even end up being wrong sheerly because of capacity and us being compute limited at the minute. So what it basically means is that in this amazing future where cloud gaming gives everyone access to the best video games, well, you're still not insulated from the data center crisis. It's just the location of the problem is now remote in a data center that cannot serve everyone who needs to be served. So, I guess, regardless of what way you go, you end up having a worse gaming experience. Obviously then, cloud gaming is not a solution to all of gaming's problems. It will absolutely increase reach, as these companies want, and I guess it is true that with expensive hardware, if it's in a data center, it will get closer to 100% utilization than, say, well, what it will if it's just sitting in your or I's computer, which is turned off. Now, I know that's not something that us who, enjoy owning our own GPU want to hear, but it will be driving a lot of the unit economics that are, well, pushing that hardware further and further away from us. But ultimately where we'll get is that the cloud gaming may be a serviceable workaround in some markets, but right now, it is a small but growing part of the overall gaming market. It's not enough to be a replacement though, no matter how much these companies would love that to be the case. And if any of them try to push it as one, well, they will likely find those limits very quickly, as of course, people in India with the new rollout have experienced, and then as people in Australia with an existing rollout are continuing to experience. And if I had a final message, it would be this. If you want to sell people on the new technology thing, you need to make it work for them. You need to make it be good for them. You need people to have a positive association with it. And the way that things are being done right now is quite the opposite of that. And that risks fundamentally breaking the relationship between the people who make games, who obviously are controlled by the big publishers and who are limited by, say, these hardware constraints, and of course, us as gamers. And what that risks is any compute-intensive hobby just kind of going kaput. Because as much as watching TikToks or YouTube shorts does take up some compute, it is vastly, vastly less. And to the human brain, it's extremely addicting. Or say, the mobile games. If the types of things we like are going to do sustainably well in the future and are not going to lose to the more dark and vicious sides of the attention economy, something is going to have to change here. And I don't know what it is. What I do know is that in general, indie games don't require all the RAM and compute in the universe, so at the very least, that part of gaming will be more safe. I would love to know how you have been impacted by this story though, and for a continuation of it, and I think it's a fun one because we do get to have a bit of a chuckle at Tim Sweeney, watch this video next.